Ready? Okay, Planning Commission meeting of March 3rd, 2021 will come to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The secretary will call roll, please.
Commissioner Hodge,
Here.
Commissioner Rice,
Here.
Commissioner Gray,
I'm here.
Vice Chairperson Tolson,
Here.
Chairperson Mann.
Here. May I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Hodge and a second by Vice Chair Tolson. Unless there's any objections, the agenda will stand approved. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rice. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Gray. I understand there are some changes to the minutes.
Yes, bear with me, Commissioners, I apologize. So on page 2, paragraph 3, line 3, the word requirement should be changed to ordinance. And on page 6, paragraph 2, line 2, the word hives should not be capitalized. On page 6, paragraph 7,
Hang on, slow down, slow down, please. Let's go back to 6 one more time.
page 6, paragraph 2, line 2, the word hives should not be capitalized.
Okay,
So same page, page 6, paragraph 7, line 5, 2,500 square foot lot size should read 2,500 square feet.
okay,
And page 9, 11A1, CUPS 819 should be CUPS 829.
so 829 is the proper number,
Correct.
okay?
And that's it.
There's also something, if I remember correctly, in the email I got, is that the proper spelling of the developer? Avante Development Partners?
I didn't, I believe it is.
Avaniti?
Correct.
Okay,
Avanti.
perfect. Do any of the commissioners have any changes to the minutes? So let's go ahead and reapprove the minutes as amended.
Move to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, so
Second.
motion by Commissioner Rice and a second by Commissioner Gray. Unless there's any objections, the minutes are approved as amended. The secretary will read the declaration of conflict, please.
If any member of the Planning Commission may have a conflict of interest or any reason why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time.
Are there any declarations of conflict? Hearing none, move on to public statements. This is the time allotted for public statements or comments for all items other than public hearing items. Due to the closure of the city council chambers, we are under executive order N2920. All comments would be via Zoom. Did we receive any requests from any individual who would like to make a public statement or comment? I don't think your microphone is on.
Good evening.
Much better, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, Mann, members of the Planning Commission. Whitney Luxemberger is here to respond to that.
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Luxemberger. So we have nobody for public comments or public statements. Let's move on to correspondence. Is there any correspondence from the Deputy Director, City Planner?
Yes, Chairman, Mann, members of the Commission. We received one supplemental agenda item for 11A1, which was provided to the Planning Commission and via email, and I believe a hard copy for those here in the room. And also received two correspondence items from Teresa Jordan, which were also emailed to the Planning Commissioners this afternoon.
Were there any emails received before 5 o'clock and any other public hearing items?
No, there were not.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Moving on, consent calendar. We do have an item on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
Move to approve, move to approve, move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, we'll take a motion by Commissioner Hodge, and we'll take a second by Vice Chair Tolson. Anybody have any comments on the consent calendar? We're going to move to approve. Okay, unless there's any objections, the consent calendar stands approved. We have no continued business. New business. This is the time and place set for the public hearing request on the consideration of PDS 1075 TT 6055. A request to construct 5 industrial buildings for a total of 356,349 square feet on an 18.01 acre lot. And approval of the mitigation negative declaration and mitigation monitoring plan. Are there any ex parte communications to report?
Yes.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Tolson?
I attended a economic development committee with the chamber where the applicant gave a presentation to the group as a whole, and I was a participant via Zoom.
Any other ex parte communications? Okay, hearing none, may we have an oral report on this matter by staff?
Yes, good evening again, Chairman Mann and members of the Planning Commission. We are very excited as staff to present this project to you today. Our applicant is proposing to redevelop probably one of the last underutilized industrial properties in the city with a industrial complex well over 300,000 square feet. So we're hoping for a good outcome tonight. Our associate planner, Cesar Hernandez, is here today to make the staff presentation. Cesar?
Thank you, Sean. Before I start, I just want to make sure, can everybody on Zoom see my screen? Yes? Okay, I see.
Yes, we can.
Nodding head. Good. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Scott Swanek of Stream Realty submitted an application for a planned development permit and a tentative track map to construct 5 industrial buildings totaling 356,349 square feet. The project also includes adoption of the project's mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring plan. Pursuant to Simi Valley Municipal Code, the Planning Commission is the decision maker for the requested project type. The project is located at 1800 Tapo Canyon Road. That's the corner of East LA and Tapo Canyon Road. See, here's the project site, middle of the screen. To the east are single-family dwelling units, and on East LA Avenue is the retail center. And across is additional single-family dwelling units. To the side here is the distribution center of Amazon, and I believe the industrial building will now be occupying this open space area. The existing office building is vacant and was formerly a call center for Bank of America. The applicant proposes to redevelop the existing 18-acre lot, including demolition of the building, reconfiguration of the existing parking, circulation, and landscaping. The project was presented to Neighborhood Council Number 2 on January 12, 2021, and the Executive Board voted 9-2 in favor of the project. So we're looking at the site plan. So there are 4 access points to the site. There's 2 driveways along Chapel Canyon Road, here and here. 1 driveway on LA Avenue and 1 on Bishop, here and along here. A new driveway with a left turn lane going southbound on Chapel Canyon Road will be located between buildings 3 and 4, right here. The median will need to be redesigned in order to allow a left turn into the project. The driveway at the southern entrance and the new driveway on Chapel Canyon Road will have full turn capabilities, as well as the driveway on LA Avenue. The northern driveway on Chapel Canyon Road will remain restricted to right turn in and out only here. An internal circulation is designed to provide sufficient access to each loading area and provide appropriate truck turning. The proposed development includes 5 industrial buildings for warehouse and office uses with a total of 356,349 square feet. The buildings will range in size from approximately 25,944 square feet to 138,210 feet. So there is a table that includes the lot size, building size, and parking required. The applicant is providing 504 parking spaces, where 222 are required, which provides a surplus of 287. The surplus allows flexibility for various types of industrial uses, including warehouse and manufacturing. Plan development condition A17 and A16 will require the project to have a reciprocal parking agreement and require an updated parking tabulation with each tenant improvement. So the next 5 slides are the building elevations for buildings 1 through 5. The building colors will include snowbound gray screen, network gray, inky blue, and the windows will be of blue reflective glazing. You notice here on the sides of the building, they all have this treatment here of metal, gray metal siding, along with black metal panels. If you notice here on the east elevation on building 3, the dock areas have treatments as well. They have that gray hue. In building 5, you show the partial east elevation, and this is the area that will be facing the residential area that's adjacent to this project. We have a perspective looking at building 2 from Los Angeles Avenue, and a perspective looking at building 4 at Chapel Canyon. And if you notice, all the entries have the same overhangs, the canopy overhangs. And its perspective looking west at Building 1 from Alley Avenue. And this is Building 5 from Bishop Lane. There are a total of 228 existing trees, and the applicant is proposing to remove 126 to accommodate the development. The applicant proposes to address the loss by planting replacement trees of equal value located throughout the site. Although the project includes demoing the existing building and constructing improvements, the applicant will maintain existing landscaping and proposes additional planting as well. The applicant will utilize the existing 6-foot-tall masonry wall and provide the 10-foot wide landscape planter with 40-inch box trees to screen the site. It's along here. Here's a residential area here and along here as well. There is a landscaped area located in the adjacent public right-of-way, and the applicant has agreed to maintain it, and this will be assigned to the owner by the Public Works Landscape Division. There's an existing easement that runs north and south that is 35 feet wide here. This belongs to the Ventura County Watershed Protection District. And this easement is intended to provide the Water Protection District space to facilitate future excavation and reconstruction of the Santa Susana West storm drain. There are existing trees encroaching on this easement that will be removed that are identified in the tree report. Now, the project also includes an enriched parkway on Tapo Canyon Road and LA. So you can do your best to kind of see it. It's in here along in front of this easement. It goes here and along here as well. An initial study was prepared for the project in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. A mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring plan were prepared for the project as stated in the staff report. Staff recommends to the Commission approval of Plan Development Permit Number PDS 1075, Tentative Track Map Number TT 6055, adoption of the mitigated negative declaration, and approval of the mitigation monitoring plan based on the findings and conditions of approval included in the staff report. This concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available to address any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Please, go ahead.
Mr. Hernandez, so I have a difference from the minimum number of parking spaces at 222 to what the applicant is proposing is 504 spaces. Okay, so that's a huge difference in spaces. Is that because if the applicant was to, if they were all office space, that's why there would be so many more needed parking spaces? I mean, because that's, look, I mean, usually this is the argument is the other way around here. I'm just really curious why we have this just massive excess of parking spaces.
Commissioner Rice, I can probably answer that question. So they calculated the parking based on warehouse use only. This would not be, the office space is incidental office spaces for the warehouse. However, you know, it does allow them for the flexibility. They couldn't be 100% manufacturing. They couldn't be 100% R&D or any of those others. So they kind of went with, we calculated that you can have a percentage of mixed uses, for lack of a better word, as far as like manufacturing uses or warehouse uses. And that's why we're asking for the tabulation with each tenant improvement on the parking tabulation. And that way we can keep track of how many spaces are being used, but we don't foresee having a problem, but this gives them flexibility.
Can't imagine you'd ever have a problem with that, but then again, who knows? It's just a lot of spaces, that's all.
Other commissioners have any questions? Any of the commissioners on Zoom? Everyone's quiet.
Yes, I would like to follow up on Commissioner Rice's question.
Okay,
Very good. For anybody, assuming the first paragraph under site design references an anticipation of approximately 53,480 square feet of office space. If that was a standalone office building and the building was 53,480, how many spaces would that require?
I didn't see it.
It's on page 2 under site design, and it references the project at the end. The last sentence of the paragraph says the project will include approximately 53,480 square feet of office space and 302,000 square feet of warehouse. So assuming that those estimates hold, what is the parking requirement for 53,480 square feet of office space?
So it's a little bit, it's not a straightforward number. Thank you for that question. It's a really good question. Because when you use a warehouse use, you can have 15% of office use, incidental office use for the warehouse, and that does not need to be parked. Anything beyond that needs to be parked, and that's why probably if you were to do the straight math, it wouldn't work out. Like you can't just take the 26,000 square feet of office. You couldn't take the 53,000 square foot of office spaces divided by 250. It won't give you the number that you're looking for because it's basically more of a combination of whatever is beyond the 15% allowed incidental use. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hodge?
No, but maybe it's because I don't understand it. And it's not that the answer wasn't exactly correct. I'm just trying to put my arms around what it means. I agree with Commissioner Rice that it appears as if we have a tremendous amount of additional parking. And I'm trying to assuage any concern that I might have by trying to put something around by saying, because there's nothing in here that says that the office space might be 60,000 square feet or ultimately 100,000 square feet. Now, I don't imagine, I imagine the developer will explain to us why these estimates are in here for the total. And I'm sure that there's some rhyme and reason to that. But trying to understand if there's any issue whatsoever, just trying to be thorough. I'm curious, what is the parking requirement for office space? If this was an office and the office was 10,000 square feet, how many parking spaces would be required?
So if this was used as straight as an office building instead of industrial building, is that the word you're asking?
No, not exactly. And I appreciate that I might be outside the box here a little bit. But if someone could help me out and give me the number of, how many cars, parking spaces are required for how many square feet?
So is the parking space requirements is 250 square feet for one space. So if you have 10,000 square feet, you'll have 40 spaces for office use.
Now that's for an office building, or
If
is
it's
that
an office
warehouse?
building, that's why I was asking if it's an office building. Once you have the industrial part of it, it's not straightforward because some of the square footage you don't have to park for it because it's incidental office use.
Right. So if we were to make the assumption, just for the sake of argument, and I'm not trying to create problems, believe me, I want to eliminate them from consideration in my mind. So I do the math real quick. And if you have one parking space for every 250 square feet, we're looking at 214 parking spaces for 53,480 square feet of office space. And I take it, and if we have I take it that if we can't really just use the 302,869 for warehouse, because that also envisions a requirement of some office space in that warehouse space, correct? So there isn't an independent parking requirement for, well, maybe there is, because the staff report says that it was assumed that the whole 356 would be warehouse. So what's the warehouse requirement per square feet?
So if it's a little bit more complicated because the first so many thousand feet you get, so many spaces and then beyond that. But just to give you an idea, for 356, 349 square feet of warehouse space, you're allowed to have up to 15% office space that you don't have to provide parking. That's 53,452 square feet of office space that you can have as an incidental use for the warehouse and not have to provide any parking for it. This is not meant to be an office building. This is meant to be like, and the reason why they come up, probably the applicant explained why they come up with those numbers that they did. The way we saw by looking at the floor plans is that the corner elements have the glazing. It's a two-story element, and those are where they plan to potentially have the office space where the rest is going to be warehouse. So it was basically by design that came out to approximately those square footages.
Okay, well, I'm gonna pass on this because even for my concerns, if we have 214 plus 222, that's still only 430 something. You got 504 parking spaces. I think that if even if they happen to have more square footage in parking in office rather, that they're going to be in a good spot. So I'll stop asking questions on that right now.
Okay, well, keeping with the parking. Condition A17, a reciprocal parking agreement for the 5 buildings on the property. Okay, never mind, I just finished reading. It must be recorded. So that's going to be recorded with the deed, correct? Item A17.
Yes, that's going to be recorded with the map.
Okay.
And if there's no map, it will be part of the CCNRs for the common maintenance.
Okay. That answers my question. Any other questions at this time for the staff?
Yeah, actually, I do have a question. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know trees and bushes as much as I wish I did. Just out of curiosity, on any of these bushes, are they anything that's going to, by chance, attract rodents? Nothing that's going to be too dense, like the spruces and different things like that. Because I know that seems to be a problem when it comes to some of the warehouse areas. I just want to ensure that we don't have any types of those trees, do we? Or bushes that would be rat type attractions?
We could defer that question to the applicant, where we discuss in length probably more on like maintenance. Ongoing maintenance probably would help address that matter, but I think the applicant will enact that.
I just didn't.
They would enact
Sorry,
it.
I just didn't see anything, but I just want to double check on that. That's all.
Yeah, there's going to be a what we call like an owner, like a owner's HOA for these buildings. They all have to agree to have maintenance, and in it is the maintenance of the landscaping. So that has to be ongoing no matter what. So to kind of help, I think, address what you're referring to, yeah, we would rely on that. So there won't be anything of rodents or of that nature that would settle in. I think probably maybe more or less along that wall that separates the residential area.
Right. I guess my question is, are those trees or bushes, like I said, I went through the list, but I didn't see anything specifically that is a tree or those types of bushes and trees. I know that sometimes for putting up a barrier between residential, that they tend to be a little bit more dense, but I know that like those spruces tend to then attract everything from, I had them at one of our houses in between. It wasn't my house, but it was the next door neighbors, and they have everything from possums to raccoons to rats and you name it living in them because they're so incredibly dense. And I just want to ensure that we have something that's not going to be that captive or that attractive for those types of rodents in planting to start with, not maintenance necessarily.
The landscaping and trees will meet the city's requirements and standards. And a lot of the times, from what I know, some of the rodents are attracted to fruit trees, and right now there's no fruit trees proposed for this project. So,
And Commissioner
Okay.
Gray, what you're seeing tonight is the conceptual landscape plan. The applicant is required to submit a final landscape and irrigation plan post-approval which are reviewed thoroughly by the city's landscape consultants to address the water conservation ordinances and the tree types that are prominent in Simi Valley. The low water use plant requirements actually are probably less dense than some of the older materials you see in older parts of older established landscaping. So a lot of the newer landscaping is likely less dense. But yeah, specifically, I don't think we could, we didn't specifically check for rodent attractiveness or if these uses are rodent proof.
Okay.
Okay, before we get off the trees, I guess I got a question back on the trees. So there's 220 existing trees. The applicant's going to remove 126. The value of those trees he's removing is $1,169,220. I'm not sure, and if I read this correctly, he's now required to replant trees equal to that amount of money. I haven't bought trees in forever, so I have no idea how much trees cost. But being that the limited space that's on the property, I'm not sure how he's going to spend $1,169,220 on trees. What if he doesn't spend all that money? What happens to the balance of that money that's unspent?
Claudia, you want to take that?
There's a different ways that you can match that mitigation amount. One is you can upsize the trees.
Okay.
And that way, obviously, the more upsized, the bigger the value is. So it kind of competes with that. If for some reason you run out of space to put any more trees or upsize any trees, then that money goes into a trust, into a fund that can be used for planting in other areas.
In the city. So basically it gets sheeted to the city.
Yes, there's a city tree mitigation fund currently.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, no other questions? Okay, would the applicant like to present the project?
Yes, we would.
Hang on a minute, sorry. We will now open the public testimony portion of the hearing. Would the applicant like to present the project? Thank you, Ms. Dodson. Okay, back to the applicant. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Yes, we would love the opportunity to present the project. I'm just gonna, it says I cannot share my screen. Do you know if I need to have permission to do so? And sorry, this is Scott Swanek speaking.
We will get that for you.
Thank you.
Are you able to share the screen, Scott?
Yes, just got it. If you all can confirm that you can see that screen, that would be great.
We can.
We're good.
Okay, great. Sorry, thank you. Perfect. Well, thank you again. My name's Scott Swanek. I'm a senior director at Stream Realty Partners. And so on behalf of property ownership and our entire Tapo Canyon project team, just want to kick it off by saying thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to give us to speak tonight. And then we did want to say a huge thank you to staff, Caesar, Claudia, Sean, and everyone. This has been a very collaborative team effort since we started our entitlement process. And again, we just want to say a huge thank you for all the help to get us where we are. So what we wanted to do with our time is keep it brief and be respectful, but just add on to Caesar's presentation, talk a little bit about our project team. We have a lot of team members here on the call, so we're available to answer any questions, give a little perspective of our history with the project, and then discuss our vision for future tenants, who's going to occupy our space. And then Jaime Cruz, our lead architect, will talk in a bit more detail about the building design and architecture. So in terms of our project team, again, I mentioned before, Scott Swan from Stream Realty Partners, we're the owner and lead developer. We're very fortunate to have assembled a phenomenal group of key consultants who are helping us make this a reality. Newmark leading our project leasing efforts, Kimley Horn, our civil engineer, landscape architect, HPA, who's our lead project architect, and then Farron Piers, our traffic engineer and consultant. And I mentioned all that, again, we have representatives from each of these expertise on the call. So if there are any further questions, Commissioner Gray, we have our landscape architect who can certainly answer the question that you were asking, so we can address those questions at the end if there are still questions. Before I kick it over to Patrick, just want to give a little bit of history. We purchased this site last summer. As Caesar had mentioned, and as people know who know this site, it's 18 acres at the corner of Tapo Canyon and Los Angeles Avenue. It does currently have a roughly 275,000 square foot office building that's been occupied by a single tenant, most recently through the end of last year, and they have vacated. Our vision for the site is to return the site to its intended use and its as of right zoning, which is light industrial. With Tapo Canyon Commerce Center, which is a Class A 5-building light industrial development that we believe is definitely the highest and best use for the intended use of the property. The last point, and I had mentioned this during our neighborhood council meeting, we do see several community benefits related to this project. What you see on the page is not the only ones, but we did want to highlight a few. First is job creation for Simi Valley. We try to conservatively estimate jobs on all of our developments, and excluding clearly the construction jobs that this will generate on a temporary basis, we estimate that the future project will create about 500 new jobs for the city, which we're extremely excited about. Reduced trip generation versus the current use. Again, we have Rachel Newman from Farron Piers on. As part of our entitlement work, we did have to analyze the traffic impact of our future project compared to the current use in the immediate area. And compared to if we kept the existing office building and fully leased it, we are reducing the daily trips substantially with our future project, which is hugely positive. We spent a couple minutes already talking about landscaping. For those familiar with the project, there is beautiful landscaping. It's one of the reasons why we were drawn to the project in terms of streetscape with trees, as well as the trees on site. It was mentioned before, our intention is only to enhance what's there today. We clearly have to remove some trees to construct the project, but as Jaime will touch on later on, we are going to replace all the trees at a multiple above what's there today. And again, the intent is to only enhance what's there. And then lastly, as is common with most developments, we will be paying significant permit and impact fees, as well as increasing the property tax revenue versus what's there today, given the quality of our project. And we always hope those represent new sources of income at the city and the county level. And we hope those go towards paying for essential services. So with that, I'll stop talking again. I just want to say thank you to everybody for the opportunity to speak this evening. We're beyond excited about making this vision a reality. And with that said, I'll kick it over to Patrick to talk about who we envision for future tenants at the property.
Hi, everyone. Patrick Dubras here with Newmark. As Scott mentioned, we were involved with them on the acquisition of this site. We sold them the site. Our team has been involved in most of the new projects here as far as industrial development in the city of Simi Valley. So the industrial landscape still carries a tremendous amount of demand right now from a variety of different types of companies, both here in the city of Simi Valley, who are looking for opportunities to grow. We've seen the previous new builds in the city that have been successful in pre-leasing before they were completed. We envision similar demand from a variety of business types. And I think for Commissioner Rice and Commissioner Hodge, with your questions pertaining to parking, this will shed maybe a little bit of light. And I was glad to hear those questions, because oftentimes what you'll find are developers are trying to max site coverage of site, meaning they're trying to put as much building on there as they possibly can, which sometimes limits the potential for types of uses. And so, as opposed to retail and office throughout the past 12 months, industrial has carried the day in job creation and continues to do so here in North LA. And our biggest challenge right now as industrial brokers in the market is delivering quality Class A space. There's a huge dearth of that throughout the North LA market. And we've been successful across Ventura County and LA. So we've really kept these types of industries in mind that you see here on this slide. One of the key components when we looked at the site was designing buildings that fit a variety of sizes of businesses. So we've got tremendous flexibility there, both with parking. So you might have a manufacturer that's in the aerospace industry, high-tech manufacturing. There's a lot of biotech demand. Who need a slightly higher, parking requirement than a throughput distribution company. But we have a lot of aerospace and manufacturing companies. Their biggest challenge is finding warehouse distribution space that's modern. And when they can find it, it anchors them in cities like Simi Valley. So, and we've got a couple of case studies here to show you. So the left side of this slide is just to show you what we see from an overall demand standpoint. The entertainment industry, pharmaceutical, medical devices are very proactive. The food and beverage, as we buy things differently online, and particularly in the manufacturing component, there's a lot of high tech as well. And then we have our warehousing distribution. So we've seen a lot of demand there that's continued, and throughout the North LA market, we have approximately a 1.3% vacancy rate. And from a Class A new building like what we've designed here, it's pretty much 0%, and we've been successful in leasing those very quickly. Couple examples here of companies in the past 12 to 18 months that would have leased this project or looked at several options within it. Several of them have been companies that the city of Simi Valley has lost because we didn't have new product. And we were part of a lot of those transactions trying to keep them in Simi Valley. They've since moved on because they needed modern amenities. So these are just some examples, and they fit in a lot of these industries you see on the left-hand side. And again, just where are these groups coming from? Many of our companies here in Simi Valley are in multiple buildings. They're in, buildings that don't have functional loading. They don't have the image, and they end up taking an additional space down the street until they grow out of it, and then they move elsewhere. So we see a lot of this demand coming from within our own city of Simi, and then also from areas like the San Fernando Valley, where we have a lot of our people who live here commuting out of and would love to find a newer modern product here. So we feel very good about the design, and we've been very cognitive of like what we're seeing in the market. And so with that, I think we'll kick it back to Scott, and they can talk a little bit more about the design of it. But with what we've done to this point, we feel very confident about leasing to all of these types of companies. And back to the parking point, last point, we wanted to give ourselves flexibility to give a little bit more to the group that might have a manufacturing component. The entertainment industry who's spilling out from Burbank and growing out, they might have a little bit there. So this really is a nice balance of parking, and we feel very good about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. And Jaime, I'll turn it over to you to chat about the site plan and site architecture.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Jaime Cruz. I'm the project architect with HPA. So as following up what Patrick mentioned about the type of users that for these buildings, we're very cognizant of the industrial realities of trucks needing to come into the building. So what we wanted to do is internalize that, to have the trucks activity, the dock doors facing each other as opposed to facing out towards any of the residents or any of the streets themselves. So we internalized everything in terms of the trucking. And then as you see on this particular slide, you see the lighter blue colors. Those are the office locations, which are obviously facing the street, facing towards the west on Tapa Canyon, facing towards Los Angeles on the north. And even on the larger building, it's facing towards that new drive that we're proposing off of Tapa Canyon with that left turn pocket into the building, into the project site. Next slide, please. So here you see the yellow highlighted areas are the actual trucking areas. You can see how they've been directed to face each other, each of our proposed buildings. And then you see the main entries are the ones with the circles on them, the red and the green, inbound lane on the north side off of Los Angeles Avenue. We have the main entrance into the buildings along the north side, and also that allows easy access into the larger buildings further into the site. And then you see the proposed new left turn pocket off of Tapo Canyon coming in as our main entry that will serve the larger buildings. Next slide, please. And then touching briefly on the landscape question, you see the variety of landscaping, taking the enhanced landscape area at the corner of Los Angeles and Tapo Canyon. We're proposing that throughout the entry areas that that are part of our design. The main entry between the two small buildings on the right-hand side off of Los Angeles Avenue, as well as the entry point, the new one off of Tapo Canyon between the what we list as buildings 3 and 4. And you can see that the landscape is maintained all the way around the property lines, maintaining the same level of shading and number of trees that we have currently on the building. Next slide, please. So this is the view looking on facing or traveling eastbound on Los Angeles Avenue. And you see the primary building. A couple of things to note, besides the office location, which the 2-story high glass, what you see with those score lines that are right at the top of at the middle of the image, that's intended to be a metal siding, prefabricated and pre-stained, that designate the office locations, and then it's repeated on vertical elements throughout the rest of the elevation. You see there's also a blue element, which highlights sort of separation of the office to the remainder of the building. One thing to note is off of Los Angeles is that our project is maintaining per the municipal requirements, the building setbacks as well as the elevation height limits that we have. We're not doing any kind of variance or requesting a variance for our projects. Next slide, please. So this one is looking then northbound off on Tapo Canyon. This is building 4 that you're looking at. And you see, again, the same kind of architecture wrapping around the building, the vertical elements, breaking up what could be a very long facade in here. Next slide, please. And we're showing this view is looking westbound on Los Angeles Avenue. This is the smallest building, building 1. And you see, even though this is not the main office area, there's still glass that we are implementing at the upper level of the building. And that's partly to get natural daylight into the warehouse space without having any security issues of having glass and storefront at street level. But you can also see the amount of landscaping that we're proposing. And this is based on the required setbacks from for the building size as well as the elevation heights. Next slide, please. And then some of the key features on our elevation. A couple of things to note is the number 11 on the right-hand side, the black area in there. Just want to note that this is in the upper sections within the warehouse space. And this is actually a perforated metal panel that would be attached to the concrete panel. So you have the concrete, which will be painted white, and then you have these black perforated metals attached directly to it, but projected a little bit in front of it, thereby casting a very unique shadow pattern on that elevation. So I think it doesn't quite read on this black on the 2D elevation, but it definitely is a little bit more unique than just painting a black or white color on a simple concrete panel. The other thing is the horizontal band that segregates sort of the lower street level from the upper portions of it that runs on all buildings, allowing these vertical elements to stand out when we have, as I mentioned before, these clear store windows that provide daylight into the warehouse space. And then the last thing is the blue higher points at the office. As you can see, those are obviously potential areas for signage for the tenants in the building. So thank you to your staff for working with us, and I think getting a really exciting project put together.
Thanks, Jaime. So that concludes our presentation. If there are any questions that our project team can answer, we're more than happy to do so.
Okay, I'll repeat it. You timed that beautifully. It was just over your 15 minutes. Thank you very much for using your time wisely. Are there any questions of the applicant?
I have a couple questions briefly.
By all means, go ahead, Commissioner Hodge.
If we could put up an overview of the site plan, please. It shows the ingress and egress.
Sorry, Commissioner Hodge. I stopped sharing and then now I'm resharing.
Well, it says thank you. I mean, it's very gracious. Oh, that works. That one
Okay.
works too. That one works too. Okay, so the way I read the staff report, it references the entry and exit at Royal and Tapo as full turn, meaning that you anticipate that trucks could come in this driveway, correct?
This one, if you can see my cursor, I'm not sure if you can.
You can.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And there's a possibility that your tenants could be doing business at night, correct? I mean, past 10 o'clock at night. You know, they might be working overnight. They might be having trucks come and pick up product or deliver product during all hours of the day.
Correct.
All right. I think this is probably more CCNR, and I don't think that's necessarily something that, you know, a place where I see to put in some sort of a condition. But I think that you could see the possibility that having diesel trucks come in at this particular entrance, there's houses, of course, just to the south of that. And those houses are very close to the property line. And so you, within a matter of, you know, 20, 30 feet, you're going to have diesel trucks sort of potentially coming in late at night through that area. And you can see how that might be disruptive to the folks that live there. And, you know, some enterprising person might even describe it as a nuisance. So I was wondering if you, in the CCNRs that you're intending to put together, if you can envision limiting or eliminating that, if it's possible to eliminate that driveway after, say, you know, a certain hour to be determined, and have the vehicles go through the main entrance or another entrance, so to give those people on the south side a break.
Scott, can I make one comment for you? It's Albert Gerald.
Yeah, you bet.
Dream Realty Partners. It's more of a question actually for our team. Doesn't that drive currently exist today? Commissioner Hodge makes a valid point, and I'm not disputing that at all. But I believe that drive and that access point exists for the current building today on site. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not, they're not, you know, diesel trucks bringing in 53-foot trailers. I mean, or, you know, it's automobiles. Sure. And those, and, you know, typically that, you know, who knows? I think it's a big difference. And yeah, for those of us who have ever worked with or lived near those kinds of things, I used to work at a grocery store where our you know, loading dock was in the back, and there was an apartment building right by it. And when we limited the hours that those trucks could come, because it really upset the neighbors. And I look at those houses there, and they expected to live near an office. And I understand you got this zoning. I love the project. I mean, I'm pretty impressed with the project. I'm curious if there's some reasonable way to limit access through that portal or that opening after a certain hour. I would imagine that, you know, the main entrance or the other entrances would be entirely adequate, so that you could perhaps in the CCNRs limit that to take a little bit of that noise factor and smell the diesel, you know, trucks off of their shoulders, you know, at night.
I think we could look at that, plus some signage that clearly states, you know, no trucks after a certain hour.
I think that would be a really good thing to do, and the neighbors would probably appreciate it. Yeah. And no one's going to say that. I think it's a very reasonable thing to do to prevent that from becoming a nuisance to those neighbors.
Sure. Scott or Shardlow, do you have any further comments on that matter?
No, I don't. John, do you?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, I think that might be a good idea. I think, you know, signage perhaps on the block wall on the south side, just saying, please be considerate of your neighbors. You know, sometimes truck drivers don't understand what's there. I mean, from a path of least resistance issue, I mean, truck drivers kind of go where it makes the most sense. Mm-hmm. I think what makes the most sense is probably the main entrance. It's probably very unlikely that you would have a conflict after 10 o'clock at night in terms of, you know, all the bays are kind of centered in the interior in order to reduce noise. But you also wouldn't want to, you know, to the extent you did have two tenants that were operating at the same time, you would want to, you know, make sure that their trucks aren't conflicting. So I think this is something that will resolve during the property owners association once the tenants are identified, but we'll certainly be, I mean, we obviously want to be good neighbors. So we'll definitely take a look at any restrictions that we can place on truck traffic to that south drive aisle.
Yeah. The intent of that additional left turn lane on Tapo Canyon was really to cut that traffic off and get them to come into the park, further to the north. And so that's why we wanted that middle drive to really give them a shorter, access to the buildings. But I think in the CCRs and through some very plain signage at that entry, we could accomplish what you're talking about, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hodge, if I might interject, the applicant's offerings notwithstanding, Royal Avenue is not a truck route. So there would be limited potential for trucks entering that driveway unless they miss the middle driveway on Tapo Canyon.
Even better. But yeah, a little positive reinforcement of those things I think would assuage the concerns of the neighbors. And
Absolutely.
if they're happy, it makes you even happier.
And Commissioner Hodge, the planning staff, you could recommend that we add a condition to require the statement be added to the CCNRs regarding prohibiting truck traffic at the southerly Tapo Canyon driveway, and also perhaps the Bishop Lane driveway between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. That we could require that statement in the CCNRs should he make that motion.
I would like to see that. It seems to me unlikely that they're going to have so much volume at night, at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, that limiting the access points to the main entrance and the northern exits wouldn't be adequate. And it would certainly make me feel better that we did our job for the benefit of the neighbors there as well, and to enhance their quality of life.
Yeah, this is Jonathan Charlo. We understand the point. I'm not sure if a condition is necessary. I mean, obviously we'd like to maintain the flexibility. I mean, the traffic study did analyze full movements at these sites. The main entrance coming off the freeway is going to be the obviously the entrance that's already dictated the main entrance. It seems odd that someone would go there. And so we think we can enforce and self-police through the property owners association.
Yeah, I think you probably can too. My concern is that at some point you've already, the staff report says you're going to sell. Like you guys, I think, and your companies are going to be terrific neighbors. At some point you're not going to own this property. According to the staff report, and I wouldn't mind having a little more guidance in there. It doesn't seem unreasonable. We'll see what the other commissioners say, but I appreciate that the traffic report was designed or prepared with these other things in mind, and I somehow doubt that it's going to be a problem. If it's going to be a problem, I mean, frankly. If it turns out that your neighbor, your tenants have a lot of trucks going over there, I mean, you're going to have a problem with the neighbors, jumping up and down and claiming nuisance, and you just don't need that.
Yeah. So let me just give one example, and I certainly won't belabor the point and totally understand, but let's just say building 4, which is the smaller building to the south. Or even building 5 had a lot of truck activity at that point. And there's trucks that are queuing in that area, in the drive aisle, in between 4 and 5. And you have a truck coming into the main entrance and is going to load at, let's just say, building 5. At that point, there's a really big pinch point where that truck that was going to go out the main entrance cannot, because of another truck in the way, and would have to make a 4, 5, 6 point turn, which would be difficult. And so in that circumstance, what you have is you have a truck or two in the truck court, just sitting there idling and not being able to get out of the site, which could have, a worse impact than if it could just, take the path of least resistance and exit off on Royal. To me, it's a condition that doesn't necessarily, we're looking at maybe the possibility of a worst case scenario. If there's a worst case scenario, I think the Property Owners Association is going to work at it. And by what I mean is worst case scenario, I just mean the type of tenants and the activity. I mean, hopefully we're going to get the mix that we think we're going to get in terms of, manufacturing, and this wouldn't be an issue, but it just would be a shame to have, a condition like this with tenants looking at the site and, all tenants just look at operational characteristics. And so, I mean, we want to be as competitive as possible. We want to bring the best tenants. And so, that's why we don't think a condition is absolutely necessary. But just wanted to raise those points.
I'm sorry, Mr. Charlotte. I apologize for interrupting, but I'm not saying that you put a chain up there or cones or anything. I mean, perhaps it could just be, language consistent with best efforts, to direct vehicles out this, after a certain hour, to direct vehicles, out certain places. It doesn't have to be absolute. Nothing, is intended really to be absolute, but I would like to see at least some best efforts, maybe a sign that goes there. If somebody happens to go out there, I mean, I'm not saying you put up spikes.
No, Commissioner Hodge and Jonathan, I mean, we're all paid to kind of think in the extremes, right? And what are the bad things that can happen? And so I appreciate both of your statements. Just know that Stream is more than willing to address it in our CCRs, put up signage, make best efforts to make sure that trucks don't use those beyond certain hours, or before certain hours. So I think the 10 to 7 is, an understandable time frame. We would like to handle it through our CCRs and signage rather than it being a condition, but ultimately that's you're the approving entity. So but just know that we understand and we'll do what we can on our side to
Appreciate
that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please. For what? Do we have any other questions? Okay, no other questions of the applicant. Did we receive any requests from members of the public to make a public statement on Zoom?
No, we did not.
Okay, moving on. Are there any comments from staff regarding statements made during the public hearing?
Yes, Chairman, Madam, members of the commission. Kind of follow up. I don't want to go too far into this. But, Commissioner Hodge was talking about the parking situation, and just as background, applicants have a variety of ways to apply for their permits. It could be a manufacturer, warehousing, aerospace. This applicant chose kind of a combination of that, very similar to the prior ZBEC projects across the street from here on Temple Canyon Road and Royal, and also the Easy Street Madera project, where there's a mixture of manufacturing warehouse parking calculations to accommodate those projects. The parking calculations are very complicated to explain in 3 minutes or less. I have planners, new planners on board. Trying to explain to them could take a good 15, 20 minutes to get to that. So, but in the background, on a weekly basis, we work with the developers and real estate agents to make warehousing and manufacturing uses work with the parking that they have. We go through hoops to calculate parking situations to get people in there. So we think the applicant's requests could provide a good mix of manufacturing and warehousing.
Okay, would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments regarding statements made during the public hearing?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other further questions? No further questions. We'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Are there any comments or questions from members of the Planning Commission? Any questions? Okay, then do we have any comments from members of the Planning Commission? What are your thoughts?
Okay.
Vice Chair Tolson?
I think this is a fantastic project. Going from 275,000 square feet to 356 is approximately 30% more square footage. I think this is great for our city. Additional new jobs. Less people maybe perhaps even leaving town. They'll be staying here to work. I like the design of the internal loading docks. Great concept. I like the variety of sizes of the buildings so that they can be different tenants based upon what their needs are. The parking, I think there's plenty of parking, and I like the idea that the a variety of potential uses and there's plenty of parking for, I think, anything they can come up with. The articulation and second-story glass is fantastic. The enhanced landscape, especially at the corner of LA Avenue and Tappo Canyon, I think is fantastic. And again, 500 new jobs is good. And Commissioner Hodges' concept about the CC&Rs, I think, is a great concept to discuss, although I don't think it's necessarily needs to be a condition for approval. I'm extremely in favor of this project.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Tolson. Commissioner Rice?
Sure. Thank you, Chairperson. I agree with Commissioner Tolson on just about everything there. I appreciate the fact of how many trees are being left, because there are some pretty mature trees there on the site as it is. And then with the enhanced landscaping, that's really nice. I like the internal loading docks. That's great. And normally in a project like this, we'd have a discussion about the design, and I really like the design. I think it's very well thought out. So not just the loading bays and traffic circulation, but that. This is a very nice project, very well needed in the city. I do agree with Commissioner Hodge that at the very least we should put signage on Bishop and Royal, and you know, I agree that a CCR would be good, but it's a very nice project. So I'll just stop there.
Commissioner Gray, any comments?
Yeah, actually, I like the look of this, and I always thought that this has been a nice lot, but it was always kind of like a mystery. You drive by and there's this building off. I like the fact that it's a little, you know, you're utilizing the space. The interior docking is, I love that. My only concern is just as what Commissioner Hodges said. I can see, again, I'm not a truck driver, but you know, looking at the angle of that Royal and Tappo entrance, and then to be able to get into those inner docks, that's an easier turn than trying to make a 90-degree angle turn. I am actually hoping that we can do something in the CC&Rs that if signage does not work, that in the CC&Rs, that if the neighbors are having an issue with it, that then possibly whoever owns the building at that particular time maybe does put like a chain or some sort of a blocking on those two entrances, if that is what happens in the future, because sometimes signage does not necessarily defer, especially in the middle of the night. And those homes are very, very close. And then it looks like there's the apartments on the other side. I do think that the design, the materials that you're using on the exterior is a really nice combination. Like you heard me say before, I'm only concerned about the types of trees and bushes that are going to be planted, because I would hate to see, I understandably why you would want to have some sort of a shield on those, especially along those neighbors, along the back south and east end. I just want to make sure that they're not things that are going to then, like I said, those spruce type trees, then your neighbor's going to be upset about the rodents and the raccoons and the possums that end up living in those, and then the spiders and Sorry, that's kind of a personal issue with me because I had to live with that for 14 years. Other than that, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful building. I'm really hoping that some of the jobs aren't just necessarily minimum wage jobs, which sometimes can happen with manufacturing jobs, but I'm hoping that the tenants that you do bring in have higher income types jobs, because in order for us to be able to live just about any place in Southern California, minimum wage jobs just isn't efficient anymore. So I am hoping that we can attract, or you guys can attract businesses that will pay more than minimum wage. But it's a nice building. That's it for me.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes, thank you. I spent some time, taking a look at the staff report as I normally do, and what surprised me and is what I didn't find. What I didn't find is anybody the applicant trying to, modify the setbacks or to change something else. And I'm looking at this and going, wow, I mean, it's just on all fours, and I was very pleased and impressed by that, because I mean the project across the street, they wanted some things, and as I recall, we kept that particular project before us for quite some time as we tried to work through all of those. And they're an excellent neighbor for this business, and they're a good addition to the city. And I'm glad that we were able to work it all out. It's kind of nice to see a development, especially of this size, come forward and to meet the requirements. Just sort of, they just met the requirements, and it's nice to see. And I congratulate them for this. I agree with some of the earlier comments that were made about the intelligence of having multiple size buildings. Now, obviously, some of these buildings can be subdivided to various tenants. That's not necessarily a driver, but it also breaks up the size of the buildings and adds an aesthetic content or feature, because they're not all the same size and they're not all cookie cutter. And I do like the design of the exteriors of the project, and I love the inclusion of the limitation of the loading docks to areas that will provide a minimum disturbance to the neighbors. I do think that we need to include in a condition in the CC&Rs, but it doesn't have to be the kind of condition which is onerous or something that they wouldn't want on their own. I think that language with respect to best efforts to minimize truck traffic within those, such as putting up signs and well, I guess the tenants will all have to agree to the CC&R, so it'll be in there. But I do think that there should be something in there. And as the staff report quite clearly said, this applicant intends to sell the project when it gets completely leased out. And if there isn't a condition in the CC&Rs that they have to have something like this, we might as well just hope that the next owner will decide to do something like that. And hope's not a very good strategy. So I don't think that if we include something like that as a condition, I mean, if they said, no, we're going to take our project and go home, if you make that a condition, I'll cave. But I think they want to be good neighbors. I think that they want to, do the right thing. And I think that we need to have that as a condition, because these good folks may not always own the project. And they said right in there that they don't plan to. So I would like to see that as a condition. The language should not be written in such a way, to be draconian. It should be appropriate. And I think that language can be created in such a way that it will not hurt anybody and will only be a benefit. Otherwise, great job. And thank you very much for bringing such a project to our town.
Thank you. Bottom line, so I'm the last to speak. It's a great repurposed building. I like to see it's going back to light industrial, something that the city desperately needs. It's a great design for a tilt-up building, obviously far superior to what's there. It's a great look for the major corner in Simi. Parking, I think they have more than enough parking. Bottom line is, you go to most light industrial buildings these days, there's plenty of parking no matter what time you go. I expect it to be the same with this one, even after the economy ramps back up. The light industrial buildings typically don't have a lot of parking requirements. I do like Commissioner Hodges' comments. The developer has played really nice with the city. They haven't gone overboard. They haven't asked for anything above and beyond. They have a great project for what their size is. So kudos to them for that. Trees, I'm impressed that they're gonna increase the number of trees on the lot. I figured that the city would get some of the money for other things, but they're saying they're gonna put in 50% or something more trees than what's there now. That's amazing. Noise, I do believe that this developer in the city can come up with some kind of wording, whether it be in the CCNRs or not, or signage as this project travels down. The city council will have the final say, so I'm good with just, kicking it down, let the city council figure out what, oh, no, it doesn't go to city council, this is it?
This is it.
Oh, well, I still believe that the developer has played nice with the city, they haven't gone overboard. I think that the staff in the city can come up with whether or not it needs to be a sign or something a little bit more stringent in the CCNRs. I'm okay with approving the project without that condition in it in any way, shape, or form. I think, again, we're all adults, the city and the developer can come up with some kind of wording. I don't want to hamstring the developer, that the wording is very, very specific. I don't want to try and massage the wording tonight. So I think there should be something, but I'm not going to condition it, or my vote would not be to condition upon having any kind of wording. I think the developer in the city can come up with something. You have a question, Sean?
Well, I guess we'll need to determine if we want to include a provision in a CCNR or not at all. And we could adjust kind of my earlier comment to, if you did want a condition, the condition could be to provide language in the CCNRs to minimize overnight traffic and reduce noise without getting details, but at least that will allow staff to look for something that they're trying to attempt to resolve it. So when we review the CCNRs, we specifically look for it and remember what the Planning Commission was asking.
Yeah, and Mr. Gibson, if I could add on to that,
Please.
It'd be something to the effect of minimize traffic, best efforts to minimize traffic and thereby truck noise. Actually, you can leave truck noise. If you eliminate the traffic, that's what we're really trying to do. I don't want anybody to say that any truck noise coming from the area where the loading docks are, that we're trying to impose any additional obligation on them on that, because I don't think that we are. But if we can eliminate, or I'm sorry, if we can include a provision requiring them to include in the CCNRs reasonable efforts to minimize traffic through efforts such as signage, in the vis-a-vis the Royal entrance and also the Bishop Lane one. I think that would be fine because, as I mentioned before, it's great that I think that these folks will do that. But eventually somebody else may come along and they could change and purchase it, and they could change the CCNRs, and it'd be up to them. We would have absolutely nothing to say about it. And I think that it would be nice to have that in there. I don't think that they're indicated any great concern about it. I'm sure that they can come up with language that everybody would look at and say, yeah, that works. This would work. So I would be inclined to include it as a condition because it's not particularly onerous. It's something that can be done, and it just prevents us from having problems in the future.
Okay, back to my comment. I mean, I understand the developer has some concerns about not wanting to have anything too rigid in the comments. If trucks are going to queue up coming into the project off of Royal, that creates a problem. But I don't want it where a truck can't go out that exit, because the truck exiting is going to be a lot quicker than a truck queuing up to get into one of the loading docks. So again, I'm sure the city and the developer can come up with something. So I guess I am agreeing with Commissioner Hodge that yes, something needs to be done, but exactly what I'm gonna let the city and the developer come up with some kind of wording for some kind of notification, something on specifically the Royal one. The Bishop one I'm not concerned about, but the Royal one, there should be something there.
I'd like to, I agree that I think that the city can come up with some language, but I think it should be on both. You've got apartments, I think, on the other side, and it's still, it's again, I do agree that, these fine people, I'm sure, are going to do everything possible to make sure that the neighbors are taken care of. It's just the in case situations. And I mean, I live in a in a HOA with CCNRs, and I've realized sometimes that they actually don't have very much enforcement unless it's actually in there, and then trying to get it changed later. And especially if we're talking about potentially new owners in the future, that may be a difficult situation. So I would like to see concentrating specifically on those two entrances and exits, and maybe even something to the effect that if there's, if again, I truly trust that the city and the developers can come up with some language, but something to the effect that if the neighbors are having an issue, that there can be some sort of a remedy other than it's basically continuously complaining to the city. I think that if there's something in the CCRs that basically state that if there's too many complaints, that there can be a hearing or something. Again, I trust that you guys can come up with the language on that, but let's protect those neighbors at the same time on both entrances and exits.
Yeah, I hate to keep speaking up, because I think that the horse is crying, I'm dead, come on. But I'm not talking about, putting up barriers or using spikes, spikes. I was talking about language that the tenants will use their, reasonable efforts to direct traffic after 7 o'clock out these exits. And if some truck driver, is put in a position where, guess what, they got to get going and they have to leave the other one. It's not like, Godzilla's going to come in and squash them. I mean, this things happen. I'm sure that, a language can be included within the CCNRs, to utilize, reasonable efforts to direct traffic after 10 o'clock and before 7 o'clock and blah, blah, blah. And that will do it. And it should be a condition so that we don't have a problem in the future, 5 years from now, when this place is completely rented out and these good folks decide to sell. That's my final thought.
And that would be on both Royal and Bishop?
I think so.
Okay. Does staff have a general conception for what we're looking for, something specific for what they can and cannot do, or what do we need to do here?
I think we have an idea what the concerns are. I got some detailed comments from some of the commissioners and some more vague responses. I think some specificity to the CCNRs, what you're looking for is warranted, as speaking with the assistant city attorney. So I think,
Mr. Gibson, did you see the chat? Mr. Shardlow provided something. Property owners shall include in the CCNRs that all owners shall take reasonable efforts to minimize truck traffic between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. at the driveways of Royal and Bishop, which can include but not limited to educating truck drivers and installing signs. Boy, thank you. Thank you. I think that's very reasonable.
Okay, we don't see the chat, so who was that from?
It's if you go, oh, that's right, because you're not doing this online.
No.
That's from Mr. Shardlow.
That works. I'm good with that.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that works. I think the main thing is that, yes, it'll be a condition, and that condition seems to be appropriate.
Yeah, they can change the language. I just want there to be a condition in the conditions that requires them to come up with language in the CCNRs, et cetera, et cetera. It can be this language. I'm not making anybody, I'm not suggesting that we, insist that this be the language, but this is very adequate. And I think what the developer is telling us is that, our applicant is telling us is, yeah, we can do this. So let's make it a condition.
Okay, we have another person weighing in. Go ahead. Microphone. Go steal Sean's.
I was just going to add that I think some specificity, as indicated by Commissioner Hodge, would be helpful. I think this particular statement, I want to make sure who's providing that. And I think we should go ahead and read that into the record so we can make that part of the record.
Okay. If we can go ahead and put it back on the screen, or staff can read it in the record. And identify who it's from too.
I just need to know who put this chat up and who it's from.
Sorry, this
Says
is
from Jonathan.
on behalf of Stream Realty.
I can read the statement into the record.
Please, identify who's from too, please.
This is coming from John Charlo from the applicant's team, and it says property owners shall include in the CCNRs that all owners shall take reasonable efforts to minimize truck traffic between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. at the driveways of Royal and Bishop, which can include but not limited to educating truck drivers and installing signs. And we can add on, Royal Avenue, Bishop. Yeah.
It already says Royal and Bishop, but I think that's good.
Yeah, I would add one thing to it, owners and tenants, because you could have tenants there that are not owners.
Okay, point noted. So adding where it says owners, just make it owners and tenants.
Yeah.
No problem with that whatsoever. Again, I think that's, 90% of what we need to get done. Staff can massage whatever else needs to be done with the developer and, of course, city attorney involved. Okay, perfect. Do we have any other comments from any of the commissioners? May I please have a reading of the resolution?
Resolution number 042021, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Simi Valley approving tentative tract map number TT6055 and Plan Development Permit number PDS 1075, the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigation monitoring plan as amended.
The chair will now entertain a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution approving PDS 1075 TT 6055, the mitigation negative declaration and the mitigation monitoring plan. Isn't it as conditioned?
As conditioned.
As conditioned.
Motion was made by Commissioner Rice. May I have a second?
I second it.
Second.
A second was made by, we'll give it to Vice Chair Tolson. Call for the vote. And then staff will go ahead and read the votes or, do a verbal vote from those attending via Zoom.
Commissioner Hodge, what's your vote?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0. Motion passes 5-0.
The appeal period for PDS 1075 is 14 calendar days. The appeal period for TT 6055 is 10 calendar days. Thank you, one and all. We'll now proceed to the next item.
Thank you all.
Great job. We have no other new business. Oral communication reports. Staff, does the staff have anything to report?
Yes, members of the commission, the March 17th meeting is being scheduled and it will be our second housing element workshop. We'll get into more details on the progress of the housing element and the various aspects which will seek public workshop information. Flyers are going out with to various locations to advise the public on how to participate via Zoom and to provide their input. So we look forward to another presentation with our consultant and staff as well as the commission. And that's all I have tonight.
Any planning commissioner anything to report?
Yes, I do.
Please.
I believe it was last week, I chaired the orientation meeting of the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee. We've been advised that there are multiple applicants for funds this year. The next meeting will be where we actually make the decision regarding recommendations to make to the City Council will be on March 15.
Thank you very much. Any other planning commissioners? Mobile Home Rent Mediation Board.
We had our item earlier, no further items.
Tree Advisory Board.
No items at this time.
This concludes the meeting of March 3rd, 2021. Next scheduled meeting is March 17th. I'm going to take a little leave here, kind of like what the city council does. I'm going to adjourn the meeting tonight in my father's name, Richard Mann. He passed away 9 years ago today. So I'm going to take some leave as the chair and adjourn it in his name. Meeting adjourned.